and this is a weekly meeting on Backdrop core development and other various tasks. Before we jump into the agenda, let's go and do introductions. So Nate, let's start with you.
Hi, I'm Nate. I'm in Oakland, California, and I'm a co-founder and core committer. And today, I'd like to I add some things to the agenda about backdropcms.org. Like, there's been some updates to the demo sandboxes that are really exciting, and I'm excited to point those out today. So, and then go through the normal agenda. Ta-da!
All right, Tim, how about you?
I'm Tim Erickson, St. Paul Tim. Involved in lots of ways. One thing I'm adding to the agenda is to talk about the top 100 Drupal modules page, because we got some feedback on that in GitHub yesterday. That's all.
How about Olaf?
Yeah, I'm Olaf from Hamburg in Germany, and I guess today I will be mostly lurking because yesterday we had a launch of a big website, so I had a lot to do and couldn't think about any plans for this meeting.
How about Joseph?
I'm Joseph from Las Vegas, and I don't really have any in particular.
Great. I am Jen Lampton from California, and I have been spending a lot of my time on Animal Crossing lately. It is a great way to burn hours if you are not in the mood for coding Backdrop. I do, however, recommend coding Backdrop instead, which I will try and start doing here shortly. Let's go down to the first agenda item, which is contributed project updates. This week we have a new module out called Entity Tokens, which is support, I think, the Drupal 7 module from the same name. So I'd like to thank everybody for working on that. And then I want to turn it over to Nate to talk about backdropcms.org update, because you're excited about it.
I was thinking if only you could get your character to write backdrop code in Animal Crossing. You could just open up your Animal Crossing IDE and then type on your Switch. Okay, let's see. So backdropcms.org, not too long ago, BW Panda got access to the Tugboat repository, and he's been doing all kinds of really awesome things there. If you visit backdropcms.org right now and click on the Try Backdrop button on the homepage, spinning up a sandbox now takes ever so slightly longer, but the sandbox that you get is now Backdrop already installed, and the button that you click to visit your site automatically logs you in using the one-time password or one-time login link. And so that's super cool that now we can skip over that installation process, which, while moderately useful, is not what most people are interested in testing when it comes to Backdrop. It also probably will make using the sandboxes for teaching environments a lot more friendly. So anyway, I thought that was super neat. And while I was looking for that issue number, there's a new pull request that BW Panda is working on that makes it so that we'll be able to remove the Backdrop repository or the Backdrop code base from the repository, and that potentially that would make it so that the Backdrop Tugboat repository would be easier to maintain, and potentially we could make it so we don't have to update the Tugboat repository every time a new version comes out. It could just use the latest version. So that would be great, just to reduce the amount of effort and friction that it takes when we make new releases to update the demo sandboxes. So anyway, great job, BW Panda. I'm very excited to see what is happening in the future, because there's a lot of things that are improving on the demo sandboxes. So that's really cool. Anyone's interested in reviewing, there's a Backdrop Tugboat repository under the Backdrop Ops organization. And then there's also some corresponding pull requests and changes that are happening over in the backdropcms.org repository. That's all I've got to say about that. It's very cool. So let's go into the progress report for the project. 1.15.1 was released, I think, let's see, last Wednesday, or maybe 2 Wednesdays ago, sorry. And so our next bug fix release is 1.15.2. And I don't actually have any issues that need to be called out for priority review. In the past week, we did finish up the enhancing testing performance and put a timer on all test executions. That's issue 4306. That was mostly the work of Joseph. Thank you, Joseph, for putting your time and effort into getting that completed.
I have a question.
And okay, and
So
go ahead.
before you get to the follow-up issue, usually when you run tests, it tells you how long the tests took, but the number it gives you is like an arbitrary number that doesn't reflect how long the tests actually took. So I was wondering if this new timer we're adding is going to use the same counter that's not entirely accurate that we're using now, or if it's a different system that might actually give us some real numbers.
So you're referring to like when the test finish, it does a backdrop set message and puts a timer at the top?
Yeah,
It's totally unrelated to that number that shows up at the top.
good.
It basically inside of the runner times each test class individually and puts that into the message as it's going through the batch process.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so this is what you'll see, the timer that you'll see when you view the test results that are run by the automation. So ZenCI's log, it will tell you how long each test took to run now.
Does that mean it doesn't do it when you run them locally? Or
It doesn't affect that section of the code in any real way.
When you're looking at the UI, as the batch is running, it stacks up all the batch messages, and those batch messages will have it because that's actually what gets printed out by ZenCI. But the report page at the end
won't have it.
Won't have it.
Okay.
That
would be nice, but it's not. We can make that a follow-up. That doesn't. Yeah.
Okay.
Not as important.
Sort of similar to that though. The caching system that was added long ago to command line based runs now, thanks to Joseph's work, now works in the user interface as well. So tests take a lot less time to run through the user interface. So anyway, the timer will be closer to reality now because because now it doesn't take so long to install every single time before every single test. Let's see. So there is a follow-up 4360, which has already been marked RTBC to that, that enabling this new functionality to cache tests or cache the install profiles before the tests are run through the user interface. That new setting wasn't saving properly, so 4360 will fix that issue. And from what you've been saying, Joseph, it sounds like the cache is turned on by default. Is that right?
Yeah, for new installations, it's turned on by default.
Yeah, which is totally reasonable because why would you want your tests to run slower? Okay, maybe if you were modifying test install profiles, maybe, but okay. Let's see. So 116 is our next minor version.
Can I interrupt you, Nate? Before you move off the 115.2, did you note all the work that Doc Wilmot did going through? He went through the entire 1.152 or 2Q, and he has a whole bunch of patches that need code review.
That's fantastic.
I did not see that.
Yeah, he's
That's
been
awesome.
through every issue. So He posted a note in Zulip like late last night or early today.
Wow. Wow. That's fantastic. Thank you,
I-
Dr. Wilmot.
Yes.
Okay. 116. 116 is the next minor version that will be coming out May 15th with feature freeze on May 1st, which means we are in the last month of development for this cycle. Yeah, feature freeze is May 1st. Let's see, the issues that we're currently working on, we've been removing the ones as they get completed because we've actually been completing things this cycle prior to the end of the release period. So ones that we're still working on include creating sub install profiles. It's issue 3174. BW Panda is the advocate for that, but he's unable to attend this meeting. The status of it is that it's ready for the most part. It's marked RTBC, but it currently needs tests. Joseph, you had been working on that last week. Is there anything that that you can provide more detail on here?
So yeah, I gave a status update last week. I think the to change how I think the work to change how backup is installed by the test framework should be moved into its own issue, because I think it's actually going to be much more extensive than I was originally thinking.
So does that mean that we're in a situation where essentially this functionality is untestable until that other part happens?
I think that's the case. I think actually if we add an install profile, sub profile of another, we will cause tests to fail.
Oh,
Like
interesting.
if we made standard depend on minimal, we actually just cause our test to fail it now.
So even if, so not only is it untestable, but if we did have a scenario where someone added a sub profile, it would cause all tests to fail.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's not ideal. Okay. That sounds like I concur. I think that your idea to split it out is a good idea. But that sounds like that now makes that other issue a prerequisite for this one. Does that sound accurate?
That is possible, yes.
Okay. I think that's a prudent way to go about this. So would you be willing to make that new issue?
Sure, can do that.
Great. Okay. So that one now blocked on being able to make it testable / not breaking all of the tests.
Yeah, I got an Nginx error from GitHub, so I think maybe it's not just Unate.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Next up, the text format UI, text format configuration UI, issue 1032. We're working on doing a completely new user interface for configuring text formats. Doc Wilmot has been leading the charge on that. Gregory is our advocate. Currently, I don't think that there's been any updates here. It currently still needs review. There's a pull request that has things working. Jen and I have both eyeballed it and found one minor issue, but there hasn't been any code review, and there haven't been any comments posted to the pull request in a couple of weeks now.
It's pretty cool if you guys haven't looked at it. We used to have these weird vertical tabs on that, and it's replaced by modals, which I think is a lot more intuitive than it was before. So it's still a little bit messy just in the fact that that screen is like really long and sort of messy. But that weirdness with the vertical tabs is completely gone. So I think it's a great improvement.
Yeah, adding some verbal feedback to that. I like that the configuration of each individual text format is usually pretty minimal. You know, like there's only one field for like the HTML filter, for example, and like the new link filter is like, or the auto linking filter is just like number of characters before it cuts off. And so there are all of these small forms that took up like a lot of space when they were all added together. And honestly, a lot of the settings are kind of optional as well. So I also like it. I think it's a big improvement, separating all of those little forms into dialogues. So that's very cool. 1575 is that issue that currently could use some code review as well as user interface review. There is a sandbox for you to try it out on. So it's pretty low friction to just give that a spin. Let's see, next up, provide a way to re-enable disabled text formats, issue 1575. This issue just makes it so that when you delete a text format, currently right now, it just hides it from the user interface, but it's not actually gone. And so this lets you turn the text format back on. So 1575, it has been in a state of review for several weeks now. And so it's kind of similar to the last issue, actually very, very similar. It just needs some review, both code and in functionality in user interface. Let's see, next up, Better Workflow States, issue 1475. I haven't loaded this one's issue, but
let me update that because I did something.
Go ahead.
I was just typing in the agenda. So where that was at was that we created, we basically closed 1475 and opened 4354 as forward revisions and 4355, which is just focused on better advanced workflow states. The PR that we've been working on is for the forward revisions. And Jen and Gregory and I had a meeting a couple weeks ago and kind of hammered out some of the questions we had about that. And I finally got that updated and into that issue. I would love for Jen or Gregory to look it over. There were a few things we talked about that I don't think we documented well. So I was working a little bit on memory, although we had it documented pretty well. So I don't know, Jen, if you have a minute to quickly look over 4354 and see if it reflects what you understand, that would be good.
Sure.
Yeah, and Doc Wilmot was asking about that a few days ago. I think he's had a chance to look at it, but I haven't got any feedback from him. I told him to let us know if it makes sense to him because he's the one who's been working on the pull request.
Regarding the state of a pull request, is there already a new pull request, or is this using the one from before? Or
no, there's been no new pull request since we had this meeting.
Okay, and I'm guessing that there needs to be some change in direction from the one that had previously been created.
Yeah, but I don't. I think most of the things that we've changed aren't like really major. I don't think that he has to start over or anything. I think he can tweak what he's done already.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
pretty close. It was just really more for us to figure out what exactly we wanted included, and it's pretty close to what he had already done. There's just a bunch of little tiny things that he can add to that PR. So yeah,
Right.
It's not a complete change of direction.
Great. All right, that's great. That issue 1475, especially where it started and where it is now, are in completely different places. So I really appreciate having a new issue that kind of summarizes, that deals exactly with what we're talking about here and not a whole bunch of different things.
Let me add one more point, which is that I broke it into the two issues, and the forward revisions one is documented really well. The better workflow states one, I understand less of that one, and it would be helpful if I did a really quick summary of it and I linked back to the old issue, but I think it would be great if somebody with a better understanding of that, rewrote the basically the issue summary.
Okay, I'll take a look at that too. Thanks for splitting those out. That's really helpful.
One of the original proposals, I think even the summary of it had something to do with the buttons and the way that the button, like the labels on the button. Do we still have an issue for tracking, like if you schedule something, instead of it saying save, it would say like schedule, and if it was publishing, then it would say publish or something like that?
So this issue ignores all of scheduling because that would happen in a contrib module.
Oh,
But
right, yeah.
It does affect buttons. So there's some of that in here, but it's not scheduling. It's like save the draft or save and make a current, like, I don't know what the language is exactly. We're going to hash that out, but it will change the way buttons work, but not in the way that other issue recommended, which was the original like Drupal 8 drop button submit action thing.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was talking about like just as you change the form, the button label would just update to reflect the actions that have
There's
been
another
completed.
issue for that one.
There is another issue for that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. Okay. That's awesome. I'm really happy to hear that there's some progress organizing and coming to a decision on that one. Thank you, Tim. Tim, could you give us an update on the next issue, allow customization of the authoring and date display 2379?
So not much change. And I haven't looked deep at this. I remember last week just asking, I think that the tags basically say it needs a code review. I think a little bit more feedback probably wouldn't hurt either, but I don't know if that's necessary. I think this one's getting close.
Okay. That's it for the 116 issues of note. We have some additional things to talk about today. One thing that was brought up before the meeting is that we had spent a couple of meetings talking about planning out the roadmap for this release and for all future releases. And we're coalescing around initiatives as being an official way to build our roadmap, sort of augmenting the advocate system, that the advocate system is for individual issues. Initiatives would be for larger, longer term projects. And so, yeah, like we should discuss like what the status is on initiatives, how we're going to handle them, what kind of tooling we need, and just a general kind of like refresher on what do we need to do in order to make this new process fly. So, Tim, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, I'll just say that I think where we're at right now is just figuring out a decision-making process. So as far as, the discussions around initiatives all happened in these sort of weekly meetings and a little bit online. The PMC, I don't think had any direct input as a body on them yet. I think the assumption was that the PMC would have to approve each initiative, but like how we get them to the PMC, I feel like is kind of the next step. And so I forget where I did it, but I wrote up a proposal somewhere in GitHub. I can try and find it, that basically just said that maybe we set aside some time at one of these meetings to just look over all of the discussion, because there is a forum section where we have about 6 or 7 proposed initiatives with some discussion on each. And I think somebody just needs to sort of put together a proposal, and we could have some discussion on one of these meetings, and maybe my feeling is that going forward, that probably initiatives can be just discussed and voted on the PMC by one at a time. But I kind of feel like to get going, we might want to approve a slate of like 3, and like picking the problem is picking that slate of 3, right? And how do we do that? And so I thought, again, maybe we just have a meeting, one of these meetings, we talk about it, we propose a slate. If there's some general agreement, we let the PMC take it further. If there's not, then maybe we have a subcommittee. I don't know. talk about it, but
Yeah, I think one of the concepts we discussed is that in order for an initiative to be approved or to
Right.
increase its chances of approval, that it have a team to be committed and work on it.
Right.
And so that, yeah, that could be, I mean, could be the trick here.
Right. So, I mean, again, that it could be where we just have like a subgroup, look at these, talk about them, identify which ones have those resources, and or say, well, we really like this one, but we've got to identify a project lead before we can propose it,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And
Yeah, something like automatic updates comes to mind, you know, is something that
sure,
it's kind of bigger than one issue. We
Yep.
mostly have the resources already, you know, kind of set, and that maybe surfacing it in a new way might move it forward.
and I feel like we should start with a slate because we might want a mix. And I feel like trying to deal with them one at a time doesn't work so well because, you know, you could vote on one and then like get to the next one and say, well, wait a second, well, I don't want to do this one because we already did that first one. And I'd rather have like a group of people say, here's a nice slate to start with, these three that, you know, and put that together. And then in the future, we wouldn't have all that work. We could, you know, if we wanted to add one, it would just be, do we want to add this one?
Yeah, we also could, if we pre-approved a slate, that would get us past a lot of the processes that we're still working out. Like, how does the community submit a initiative? You know, how does the, you know, how and when does the PMC vote on the initiatives? Like, yeah, that could make it so that we could at least publicize the concept of initiatives and seed it with examples all at the same time. Yeah.
Well, and just to be clear, I think we already at least have one or two blog posts about this coming down the road, and we do have the initiative section on the forum. We have 8 proposed initiatives already
Wonderful.
in the forum. Most, about half of them have some discussion. A couple of them don't have any discussion yet. Right. So.
By proposals, do you mean ideas for proposals or actual?
Well,
they're probably not.
They're not
fully formed yet.
They're not fully formed. They don't necessarily have like a lead or that stuff. But it's like, so just take here. I'll put the link in the chat. If you just go to the forum, you can at the top level page. You can see the list. I mean, really quickly, the 8 are telemetry, better editorial capabilities, better caching and mobile approach, built-in data import and export, Drupal compatibility helpers, better support for Contrib project maintainers, documentation, and include several ready-to-use themes. And like that last one, that was an idea that I have like proposed a slight modification on. So they're not fleshed out finished proposals, but they're ideas.
Great. I haven't seen these yet, so.
Okay.
Yeah, very exciting.
Well, so I mean, one of the last proposal I drew up is that we just announced that this group, or that a week from now, a group is going to try to put together a slate, and so people have one more week to add comments, to add new ideas, and then maybe during this meeting next week we spend 20 minutes and see if we can quickly come up together with a slate of 3. If we can't, then we ask a subcommittee to sort of meet and talk about it. Because I it could be that it's fairly easy to come up with a slate. It might turn out to be not. I don't know. Or we could just not do it in this meeting at all and just have a sort of a subcommittee propose kind of a slate and bring that to this meeting. I don't know. The point is just to get it to the point where we can give it to the PMC. Because one of the things I've learned in my brief time in the PMC is that the more polished we can have the proposal when it gets there, the much quicker it's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds good.
So, well, let me just ask that. Should we just have a subgroup try to put together like a slate, or do we want to have a meeting or talk about it at this meeting in the future?
I feel like talking about it in this meeting is fine as long as the proposals are like reviewed ahead of time. I don't think we should read through them.
No.
But if we can say something like, okay, in 2 weeks, we're going to review all the proposals, or 1 week or whatever, then whoever's here this week and whoever here's next week will know about it. And then the week after that, we can say, okay, we're going to talk about it. And hopefully we'll be able to make a decision in this meeting. If that section of time, which we like if we allocate 15 minutes or something, if we can't get it done, then we should maybe do a follow-up meeting or extend the meeting, like let everybody end this meeting and then we'll talk afterwards or something like that. But yeah, that would be my preference.
That works for me.
Okay, so do you want to set that date? Do you think 2 weeks is sensible, or should we do more time or less time, or?
I would say 2 weeks is sensible.
Okay, let's start with that, and then we'll mention it again next week and make sure everyone's on board, and then we'll try and make a decision the week after that.
Okay. And ideally, people will then fill in those details if they're serious about, people will start to identify who the project lead would be before we actually make that decision. Okay.
All right. So we also have a general discussion about Zulip. Looks like there's some proposals here about merging and changing some streams or channels into different things.
Sure. Can I just jump in? Because this was my...
Yeah, please.
We don't have to have a big discussion about this right now, but there's some people have raised the concern that there's too many streams, and I agree. And so today, a few of us were floating some ideas. We'd like to have as few streams as possible and only where they really matter. And I think like the idea of I think some of us are questioning the need for either a code review or a contrib stream. That could just all be what put into backdrop. And I guess my goal right now is just to give anybody a chance to object and let us know if there needs to be further discussion or if we should just go ahead and do that. The other thing that's a little less clear, because Olaf already expressed some opinions on it, and maybe I could talk to him after the meeting about it, is our thought is that one different stream that makes sense would be something to deal with like infrastructure. We had that in Gitter, we had the backdropcms.org. We have a forum channel, and the forum channel could become that sort of infrastructure. But what we call it is, people have raised different concerns, and I don't care what we call it. But
interesting. I thought the forum channel was a place where people could talk about things that were in the forum, not the building of the forum site or infrastructure.
Well, I would say that's not wrong. Okay. I don't think that there was a lot of thought into what the forum channel was. But I agree, that's what I thought it was originally, but I think right now the feeling is that we don't really need a channel for that. And so it's not so much like just renaming it as repurposing it. Like,
well, I think it would be nice to keep a forum only channel if we're gonna have the bot automatically post messages from the forum into the channel. So that would be my one instinct for leaving that. And then that would also kind of encourage conversation about those things in that channel. Because I don't think we should have the bot posting those messages into some other unrelated channel like infrastructure. That might be like a strange place for decisions.
Yeah, I think the first two things I said, we seem to have the most agreement on. This one seems to be the most, needs a little bit of discussion. And the issue you're raising, it's the same one I had, is that like, where does the bot go?
Yeah.
And the one possible solution to that was to, other solution than yours was to just have the bot post into the backdrop, the main backdrop stream, into a topic. So people could mute the topic if they wanted, but otherwise it would just go into our main backdrop stream.
Okay, I have a question, a more high level question. So like if you delete a stream, does it move all of the current content into whatever your destination is? Okay.
I haven't looked into that fully, but I don't think it does.
Okay.
I think we lose that content. So
that would be my one concern, is that if we're going to start deleting streams, I would want to make sure that the conversations are retained, because it sounds like that's why we're using Zulip, is because people like having that history. So that would be one concern.
So, that concern has been raised. And my response to it is it's why we would like to do this sooner rather than later if we're going to do it. Okay. My other concern is that I think we're using Zulip to make it easier to go back and follow a conversation, not to provide a permanent archive. I mean, that's okay to the extent that Zulip does it, great. But to me, if you're thinking in terms of permanent archive, I still think it's better to look at the forum or whatever. So I think it's not ideal to delete some previous topics, but it's also not like, it shouldn't be a blocker in my personal viewpoint.
Okay, I have another question. Are these topics something, or what are they called, streams, something that anyone using Zulip can create? Or is it an admin only feature?
So that's a setting. We can't allow anyone to create them. We set this for admin only to start with, just because we didn't want there to be a whole bunch of streams. And I think our idea was that we would talk about them before we added them. Although the truth is there was never a lot of planning in terms of like how to use streams. And so there's a couple of admins, and I think a couple of people each made like an experimentation phase, like said, oh, we should have this stream. And there was never a real thoughtful discussion. And that's why we're having this discussion now.
Okay. So my only other thought was that if it wasn't admin only, then it will probably end up exactly the way topics have, where there will be a gazillion of them based on whoever is creating it. So if we're going to leave it admin only, I like this idea to clean it up and have some guidelines around what goes where. And so I think that would be my preference, is to leave it that way. But if there is effort to go the other way, I would say then there's no point in cleaning it because it's going to end up messy anyway.
No, I agree. Yeah. If we delete streams, then we need to keep it admin only. Otherwise, they'll just come back. Yeah. And, you know, I don't know how formal or like how the decision about adding streams should be made. That's another discussion, which I don't know if we need to have today, but it's something we should think about.
Nate, do you have any memory of how new Drupal IRC channels were created? Wasn't it like anyone can create their own, but then you have to get like community, like has to actually use it in order for it to be successful, and then it needed a moderator or something?
Well,
or what did they
well, on Freenode, making a channel, like anybody can make any channel they want with any name they want, and then the first person that is there becomes the administrator, and then they can assign moderators. And I think the only official blessing that there was is that you could get the bot in your channel if it was deemed useful there, but even that was really loosey goosey, just kind of so there wasn't really any real official.
You know, over time, I think like an initiative may want their own stream, and that might make sense. And you know,
yeah. Or I mean, I also don't really understand the difference between streams and topics. Can't you use a topic in the same way people are using streams right now?
Well, except the main difference is that you cannot subscribe to a stream and you won't get any messages in that stream, right? So that's like, to me, having Contrib and the code review broken out from Backdrop doesn't make sense, because we could do that in topics, and it's not a clear distinction like that people want to get Backdrop but not Contrib, right?
Well,
but
you might want code review on custom things that aren't Contrib too. Yeah.
I mean, I don't see a reason why that can't just be a topic right now. I mean, it's like, to me, you don't need a reason to create a new topic. Topics are cheap. You can make them all you want, but I think that you should have a really good reason to create a stream.
Okay. Right. Well, I think that I don't really have any strong feelings on which one should be which, but in general, I think like Olaf has a really great use case for, I don't really care about all that weird stuff that's going on in code land. I just want to know about what's happening in the forum. And I think that we're going to have a lot of people like that who will want subscriptions to something that isn't going to involve all of the other chatter that goes on in core. So I don't know if we have anyone who would distinguish between notifications on Contrib and notifications for code review. So I'm kind of with you on that.
Right. Okay. Well, I think we could table the forum one and leave that for now and think more about it and do the other two things. I mean, we kind of went ahead and deleted 2 streams already, because one of them was the internationalization one, and Olaf said he didn't care if he had his own stream, so we just got rid of that. And there was one other I forgot. That was the same thing. It was like nobody really had anything invested in it, so we just got rid of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the forum is a special case because there are arriving the notifications from the forum, and that's an easy way to see what happens there. It's not possible otherwise.
I'm fine with that. I have more thoughts about it, but no time right now. So let's just leave that one for now. Do with the other two.
Can discuss it in Zulip.
Yep. Okay. I think that we should leave that discussion. And then I had one more, I think, quick one. Should I just go ahead?
Yep.
Yeah, go for it.
The last one was somebody asked about the top 100 modules. Basically, the conditional fields module was listed as having been ported, but there is no release for it. It's just on GitHub, and apparently it's not stable. So I just fixed that. Somebody else said the same is true of the calendar module, which literally is true, that there is no release for the calendar module. There is like a full calendar module. So I just wanted to confirm that maybe somebody had something different in mind, but I switched that also to port in progress. So I switched calendar, and I looked at the numbers at the bottom of the page, like the totals, and some of them make no sense to me, but I didn't want to just update them without asking.
Yeah, so that page, it came from a slide,
right?
And I don't know like how recently it's been updated, but yeah, essentially the bottom was just like a count of icons. Right. So like if you change it from check to cogwheel or whatever, then the cogwheel count.
Well, those numbers don't correspond with the number.
I would imagine they probably need to be updated.
Yeah. And I get that. So, but I just, before I fixed it, I wanted to ask, and also I was wondering if would it be unreasonable to like put that on the release, the post-release schedule or something, that somebody just update that page, just to have some way that we like regularly check in on it.
Yeah.
Or if we created a new list, like a quarterly just update list.
You mean on the checklist for when a Backdrop core release comes out? Like
I was thinking,
I think that's a good place for it, because it would be every 4 months we would.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good one.
At least every 4. If it happens more often, great. If not, then at least every 4 months somebody looks at that and updates it. So the last thing is, this guy that originally brought this issue up said that he finds it very chaotic and busy, and suggested that we sort the modules and group them, right? So all of the move to core are together, all of the port in progress are together. Any opinions on that? I don't feel strongly, but I see.
The order they're in right now is the order of top modules from Drupal. I feel like, I'm not sure how much value this page has. I felt like it was kind of compelling as a slide, but you could see like blue, green, like, and that was kind of the most important thing. But I feel like if this page is valuable to people, we might want to do something other than just a massive grid of stuff. Like if we had it in a table where you could like sort it the way you wanted to, that might be useful. Or group it in different ways. I don't know, but
well, 2 people commented on this really quickly, which indicates that people are interested in it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe we should rethink it. I think changing the order initially is going to make it really hard to keep up to date, because what I do every time I update it is go through the top modules list and reorder it to match the top modules order. And so having that correlation is handy. But if we can find a way to build that page where we can update it that way, but display it in different ways, that's fine. So like maybe it needs to be content type or a view or something.
I recommend we take that part of the discussion back to the issue queue, and then I just do the things we talked, the easy things.
Yeah, go ahead and do the things. That's great.
Okay, got it. That's it.
Where is this page?
It's under developer notes in the upgrading from Drupal 7 section.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, well, we're pushing past the hour, so let's, and that's all the discussion items on the agenda. So let's wrap it up for today.
Oh, I did just also want to say that GitHub is definitely having problems. Their status indicator is showing that. And I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but they did roll out a bunch of new features. Like in the sidebar, there's a list now of all the pull requests that are related to an issue, which is what we've been wanting for like 5 years. So I'm hoping that the new features will stay and the site will come back up. We'll see.
And someday we'll get collaborative pull requests.
Well, that's what we think.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Really appreciate you guys being in the meeting and all the progress that's happening. by those here in this meeting and those that are watching the video later. So thank you guys all out there, and we'll see you guys again next week. So bye, everybody.